This is ACOFAE. Laura Marie and Jessica Marie proudly present A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, a podcast. Fair warning, everything the hosts say is explicit, full of spoilers and adult content and shall not be used against them. They have opinions. Let's try not to drag anyone for expressing themselves and just have fun for an hour. We all deserve it.
This episode may contain spoilers from Assistant to the Villain, but there are no spoilers for Apprentice to the Villain.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, your weekly deep dive into the fantasy, literature, and fandoms that we love. I'm Laura Marie.
And I'm Jessica Marie.
And today, we are welcoming back a very special guest.
We have #1 New York Times bestselling author in USA Today's bestselling author, Hannah Nicole. Welcome back, Hannah.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Hannah Nicole Maehrer. I am the author of Assistant to the Villain and its upcoming sequel, Apprentice to the Villain, and I'm very excited to be here with you guys.
We're so excited to have you.
I'm so excited to be here.
I had a question right out the gate. The last time that we chatted, I know we were talking about book 1 and how I was like, I can see this. I can see this as an adaptation. I can see this on the screen. And since then, that has happened. That has been confirmed. That is in the trades. Was that the hardest secret that you had to keep? Did you know then? Like, you don't even have to get into the details, whatever you can't share. But I was just like, how did that work? Because we chatted last August.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what I knew. I feel like this whole year has been like a blur, and I cannot remember. Like, everything's so like foggy in terms of like when what happened. Like, all these things happened that I was like, what? I can't believe that. I don't know that I think I knew that there was possibilities at that time, but nothing was like for certain. And then, or wait, maybe it was. I actually don't know. I feel like I probably not. I want to say no, but it was definitely once I did like know everything and I was like in the know, it was definitely very hard to keep. Everything's hard to keep a secret, because when I first started doing this, it was like it was just me. Like, I was writing book 1 on my own. Like, I didn't have my awesome publisher yet, and I wasn't working with my agent yet. Like, it was just me. And I was like, I can tell everybody anything I want, because I'm just going to spill it all. So I got in the habit of like sharing everything with everybody. And then I got to a point where I'm like, oh wait, I can't say that. Like, I have to keep that in.
It's like Marvel. You have to keep your mouth shut. You're like, I don't know what I can and cannot say, so I better not say anything out.
The amount of times I've said I am Tom Holland, like, I am going to Tom Holland this so badly. Like, I'm just going to say, every time I'm on live, I almost say the name of book 3 every time I'm on live. Like, it's this on the tip of my tongue. And I'm like, oh. And then everyone's like, say it. You can say it. And I'm like, no, I can't. No.
Little peer pressure.
Like, this isn't
say it.
Yeah.
Just a little peer. Oh, yeah. I love my followers. They're all like, say it. And I'm like, you guys are bad influencers. Like, I can't.
And everybody's cheering you on. They're like,
yeah. I'm like, I feel.
What if I just say like the first letter?
I know.
Like,
I'm like, I know that I'm so bad. I'm like, I feel so affirmed. Maybe I just will say it. Like, no. But yeah,
so nice.
It's definitely hard to keep secrets. It helps that like I usually tell my mom everything. So if I could tell her, I'm like, I'm good. But yeah,
like, I need to get this out to someone before it just like pops.
Yeah, it's definitely was a learning curve to like not say everything that I'm in the habit of just constantly saying everything I'm thinking at all times. Like, I always wanted to be like a mystery girl. Like, I'm going to be mysterious today. And then I'm not. And then I'm like, hi, where are you from? This is where I'm from. This is where I was born. This is my favorite colors. Yeah, so it was definitely a learning curve keeping everything a secret. But I feel like I've gotten the hang of it. And now I like enjoy like teasing and stuff. It's fun. And it's something that like the other day I teased the first line of book 2 of Apprentice, because everybody, I like made a video hinting that it was like not such a, like, you're probably not going to be happy when you read that line. And everyone was like, what? What does that mean?
Well, and it's funny because like we were fortunate enough to receive, I know like the physical copies haven't really gone super wide yet. So we were fortunate enough to receive a PDF of the arc. So that first line, I was like going back to book 1 and I'm like, wait, I thought this is where we left off. How did we get here? And we're keeping everything spoiler free in this episode because this is happy release week for Hannah. So I was just like, hold on. I have to keep reading because something isn't making sense right now.
Yeah, I remember when I wrote that line and I went, oh, this is so mean, but I'm gonna do it anyway. And I was like, okay, because all these people were like, I'll feel so much better if I know who the first chapter's point of view is in. Is it Evie or the villains? Like, that will make me feel better. And I was like, great. I will tell you, it's neither of them. And everyone was like, what? And people are like, you're the villain. I'm like, yes, I've grown too powerful. Like, I'm mad.
You're like
with
Taylor.
power.
You're like giving little hints, but you're the only one who knows all the hints.
Oh my God, I'm gonna pass out. That's I don't know how to handle that comparison. No, I really enjoy like the teasers and stuff now. And now I think it's like fun for all of us. Like it's everybody's enjoying themselves. And I'm like, I'm an Aries. It's not my fault. I'm just a girl.
How's your poker face?
Terrible. Like I've never been a gambler. And I've gotten better, but people will ask me, somebody asked me something at a signing and it took everything. And it was like asking about a spoiler and it took everything in me to just like freeze my whole face and go, I don't know. But I was like, my eyes probably look crazy right now because I froze my mouth, but I think my eyes were still like that. So I was like, no, that did not happen at
It'll
all.
get better, right? Like this is all practice, right? Your poker face will get better, especially since you like teasing us so much about this.
Yeah.
So we have talked in our first episode about your writing process. I want to talk about your writing process for the second book. Mainly, has anything changed? Or are you still kind of following the same rhythm that you did in the first book?
It was only different in the sense that when I sat down to write book 1, I like had no idea what this book was going to turn into. I the first day I sat down to write it and I was just like, let's just see what comes out. I have no idea what this story would even look like, what it would look like. Because I had been making this series in like episodic format. Is that the word, episodic? Is that a word? I think
it's a
great
great word.
Yeah, it is a word.
I'm an author. I know words.
I'm just an author.
I'm just a girl. So I'd been making them in episodic format so for a really long time. I was like, how would it, because this like a book structure is obviously so different than making like a 60-second video. And I was like, structurally, I have no idea what's going to happen. With book 2, it was a little different because I outlined book 2 very loosely, I might add. I'm still a pantser. I still like to wing it when I'm writing because I feel like I'm the best creatively when I don't always know what's going to happen. And to be honest, every time I try to plan stuff, it never works because the characters have rebelled against me. I am their creator and they don't acknowledge that anymore. They're just like, I'm going to do this. And I'm like, that's going to make it really hard for me in the next chapter. I wish you wouldn't.
I wish you want to do, because so then like the creative process, everyone's like, when you're trying to force, you're like, you need to go right. And they're like, but I want to go left. And you're just like, and then the story doesn't flow to the right the way you want it to either. Right. You're like, this doesn't feel organic or natural because the characters you've created, they've controlled the situation.
Yeah, they make their own decisions now. And to me, they're just like fully like autonomous at this point. So I'm like, I don't really get a say in anything you guys do. In the book 1, I felt like I had somewhat control. I was like, I am your God. You must listen to me. This is what we're doing. And sometimes I'd be like, especially with Evie and the villain, every scene with them, I was like, kiss. And they were like, no. And I was like, all right, I have to respect your wishes. And everyone's like, the tension. And I was like, it wasn't up to me. I didn't get to decide. It wasn't.
You were the parent. You birthed them, and then they got a mind of their own.
Yeah, they just decided. And every time I've been writing since I was really little, and I'd heard people say like my characters are completely not listening to me, and I'd be like, what do you mean? Like you control the situation. You are allowed to do this, and I really didn't understand that fully until this project, especially with book 2. That was the biggest thing with book 2 was I would plan for something to happen and I'd be like, this is what's going to happen. And then I'd start writing the scene and something completely opposite would happen. And then I'd be like, and every time I wrote a scene that I had planned, there was like a portion in the editing process where there was this middle chunk of the book where I just like, I liked it, but I had planned it meticulously. And then I wrote it that way. And then I was looking at it and I was like, I hate it. And it was like 1 a.m. So it was not a good time to be making hard and fast decisions. So I just deleted the whole thing and started over.
As you do.
I was like,
and if it was like, and if it made sense, you're like, then the story would come again. The same. You were like, okay,
if you love something, let it go. It'll come.
Yeah,
back.
and I did. I was like, we'll see. Just like let it go into the ether. We'll see what happens. And then I rewrote it literally that night. I think I deleted like, I don't even know, like 10,000 words. And then I rewrote the 10,000 words. I know. I was like, really, I don't even know what happened that night. The next morning I had rewritten the whole thing though, and went back the next morning and it was a completely different sequence of events. Like it happened completely differently than it did the first time. And I liked it so much better to the point where I was so overtired the next morning. Like I was on 2 hours of sleep and I was staring and I was rereading it and I just started to cry because I was like, my boyfriend was like, are you okay? And I was like, I love it so much.
And you straight up deleted it. You weren't like, I'm just going to cut this out and save it somewhere else for the time being.
Ooh, you wild.
10,000 words. I'm hung up on that.
Let me preface though that I freakishly save everything. So I will have like draft 1 saved. So I still had draft 1. I was on a different draft. So I could have gone, if I really like wanted it back, I could have gone back to my draft 1 doc and pulled it back and put it back in. Because I'm always like, hard and fast decisions do like give me anxiety. But I was like, I'm just going to delete it.
It's also very Aries of you, like making a decision and going for it. Laura's the same way with her Aries sun. She's like, nope, we're going. And I was like, she's so pushing me outside, pushing everybody outside of their boundaries. Like, oh, we're going to do that. Okay.
Yeah. Being an Aries is tough because you do things. And sometimes even you will be like, oh God, that was a choice.
Why? Yeah.
I made that decision and I did it. But I was so much happier with it. And I just think it, and then when I read it from start to finish, I was like, oh my God, like I am so hard on myself with everything, especially writing, but because I only want to get better every time. So every time I'm like looking for ways that I can improve myself as I go. And I was like, no, this is perfect. I love it. Like, excellent.
Do you feel that way with when you wrapped book 2, where you were like, you know, when you have book 1, you just want to meticulously edit it time and time again, because first you were selling book 1 to like you're querying to agents agencies, and then like you have your publisher and they're looking at the edits, and as long as it's in your hand, you're editing. But did you feel like more, or like did you feel less pressure being so familiar with the process with book 2?
It was like a mix, because there were points where I felt more pressure, because it's just pressure I'm putting on myself, where I'm like, I just want this to be like, I just want to get better with each book that I write, and just constantly like produce something that I'm more proud of each time. And I put that in my head at the beginning, and then I stopped myself and was like, nope, this is inhibiting me now, because now it's seeping into like what I'm writing, and I need to just wall everything off and just go back to like, this is like my favorite place to be is with these characters and in this world, and I have so much fun here. And then it felt like it was such a different experience from book 1 in that sense, where I was like, I'm less hard on myself this time around, I think. Good. And I when I finished book 2, I literally was like, this is my favorite thing I've ever written ever. Like book 1 is just a different level of love, because it's my first published book ever. It's my debut novel, and it's such a love letter to these characters that I've loved for so long, and this world that I've like, it's my safe space. And so book 1 will always like be like my like special place in my heart. But book 2 is like, when I was all finished, when I was done, and I sent it like back to the editor, like after the biggest round of edits where I like changed so much stuff, like I rewrote so many scenes, like I reworded stuff, I changed like big plot points, and when I sent it back, I was like, I'm so proud of that. Like, I'm so proud of book 2. And I was so
Please
happy
don't red letter anything. Please don't get a red pen out.
this.
No, I feel like the editing process this time was so fun because I think like the first time it was so fun too. It was just like wasn't sure like what to expect because it was my first time working like one-on-one with an editor, and now that I knew what to expect this time, it was such a like cohesive, like collaborative process, and it was great. So it was the same and different from book one. Like there was so many things that were different. There were definitely things that were super the same. Like the actual process of sitting down and writing was exactly the same because it's the same feeling I get where I'm like, oh my God, they're touching. Like what's happening?
And the banter's so good. Like the banter's so like you just can't help but gush over these characters and their internal thoughts. Like it's so fun.
I love them so much. I'm like saying that like I didn't create them. I say that all the time where I'm like, I love it so much. And someone was like, well, you wrote it, so that's good. And I'm like, I know, but
I did a good job. Good job, me.
Like, look at them like autonomous from myself. Like I'm like, they're not me. So I'm like, I love them. Like I love Evie and the villain and everything. And I was talking about this in another interview where I said I was talking to my friend the one day and I was like, I have this headcanon and she went, it's not a headcanon if you wrote it, it's just canon then. And I went, oh my God.
You're like, whoa. This isn't the mind blow. You're like, oh wait, I can do that.
My brain exploded. I was like, wait. And she's like, oh my God. Like I was like, I know, don't tell anyone. Meanwhile, I'm like, I'll tell everyone. I don't care. I'm very like, I'm going to own if I did or said something a little embarrassing because if I can use it and make it funny, then absolutely will.
Wait, can you share the canon? What was the canon?
I don't even remember what it was. I just remember that moment specific. What was it?
You remember when you realized your own power.
Yes, people were asking, and I might have talked about this with you guys the last time we talked because I think you guys asked me like, what's canon, the book or this. Yes, this is what I said. This is so funny. It's like a full circle. I think I said to my friend that I was like, I think my headcanon is that like Evie has a TikTok page and it's really just for like making fun of everyone in the office.
Yeah.
And I had told my friend this after I talked to you guys and I went, it's a headcanon. And she went, no, it's not. It's just canon.
Actual canon.
Just canon, bud. Like you wrote it, so it's canon. And I went, oh my God, cool. She's like, that's like you saying like one of the scenes in book like one, you have a headcanon. You wrote it, so it's just a canon thing.
This is like that is maybe this is the author canon event that you just created. Like every author.
This is getting very meta.
I know. My head's starting to hurt.
Oh my gosh,
it's so
amazing.
Yeah, I was like, oh well, that's good. But I'm just a girl. What do I? That's my excuse for everything now. Is I'm just a girl. What do I know? Like, I'm still learning.
Well, I think you know a lot because in this, I know you do. But in this book, you have introduced us to not only a fantastic world, but we have new characters in this book. We go new places, we do new things, and our plot takes us all around. I know that you kind of went by the seat of your pants for this, but you did plan a little bit.
I did.
All of these wonderful locations that we go to are so thought out and so detailed, and I love the way that like the characters are interacting with everybody and we're learning so much. So creating these new things in book 2, did you just let all of your creativity just kind of flow because you didn't feel any sort of restriction to book 1?
Yeah, I had like points to hit. Like I sent my editor and the team an outline of the book that they looked over to, and so that's like, we were like, oh, that's great. But it was all like loose, like everything in between was loose. So I was like, I still have so much room to play. And it was kind of like creatively fun in that way where I was like, okay, here's a point. I know I need to hit this point at some point. I don't know how. And then I'd magically somehow be able to hit it. And I was like, oh my God, I'm a wizard. How did this happen? It was so fun. It was just pure creativity spilling out. I think that, so many of the places that they visited was just like me thinking of like the most I let my brain like do the most fantastical things that it could do. And it helped, like I was, I worked in childcare since I was 15. Like I've been nannying on and off since then. And one of my favorite things about being around kids is that they have like the biggest, like most unlimited amount of imagination. Like it's just completely expansive. And the best part about like spending time with kids is that you kind of like take on that energy where you're like, everything is possible and I can do anything. And if I want this well to talk, it will talk. That doesn't happen in book 2, but you get the gist. Now I'm like, people are going to be like, where's the talking well in book 2?
Kingsley is going to have a run for his money. He's going to be like, and now Kingsley's going to have a friend and there's going to be like some in-office drama.
Yeah, there's not just a well holding up the side. I think
through his
like,
blowhole.
Yeah. And it was a love letter to fairy tales too, book 2. Like there's so many fairy tale salutes in book 2 that I have like my favorite fairy tales growing up, and just kind of like letting that like seep into the story very organically. And yeah, a lot of the times I was like, I don't know what we're doing here, but let's see what happens. And then at the end of the scene, I'd be like, oh, that was fun. I love that. Like, let's do it again. And sometimes I'd go back in editing and I would expand on something that I was like, oh, I want more of this. Or I would take something out that I was like, this doesn't really make sense anymore. It was funny the first time, but not anymore. So yeah, and editing too. But when I was just sitting down to write it, I sort of just I was like, whatever comes, and whatever doesn't, set it free. Let it go into the ether. Like, let it go. I feel like it was just a very, very creative process. The new characters, I love characters. I love like meeting new characters or presenting new characters, especially when they're like kind of quirky and they just have like very distinct personality traits that you're like, oh, and they're easier to discern because you're like, oh, that character does this a lot. And then it's even funnier. So yeah, I think I enjoyed expanding and having the characters interact with characters outside of the office. So that was like a little bit different from book 1, where most of our interactions were within the office or with people within the office. So that was a cool like change. And yeah, book 2 is just more expansive in every way. So I got to expand on points that I didn't get to in book 1 or that I knew I would expand on in book 2. So yeah, it was very fun, very creative. I had a blast.
What was the hardest? Would you say that there was anything that was more difficult this time around? Or does everything just feel like it was different but not difficult?
I think with anything, there's difficulties. Like, I don't think I've ever experienced anything like really wonderful without there being some semblance of difficulty that comes along with it, whether big or small. And writing book 1, there were difficulties. I think that I'm such an optimist that I always try to spin something that I'm having trouble with into something positive. And not always, because sometimes things are sad or negative, and it's okay to just like let them be that and then process them healthfully and then move on. But if I can, like, it's just like kind of my natural inclination. So even with book 1, there were difficulties. I think I tend to focus more on the things that like I enjoyed so much. But yeah, with book 1, there were moments where I would get very in my head about what I was writing, or I literally have days where I'm like, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. Like, this is the worst thing that's ever come out of anyone's brain ever in the history of the world. Like, obviously that's not true. And usually if I gave myself like 2 hours away from it and I'd come back and be like, okay, that was a little dramatic. It's quite literally, but actually it's kind of good. Like, I don't know what happened to me. But yeah, I think imposter syndrome is probably my biggest like thing that will crop up. And I think that's like, I've learned that everybody experiences that, not just within like being an author. It's kind of, I think anything that people do, they kind of have a level of feeling like, oh, everyone else belongs here, but I'm not sure I belong here. And I think that those were my biggest, like, or my hardest days were when I would get on to write, and the wall I would hit with like creatively wasn't even just like creativity wise. It was just like in my own head too much and needing to like take breaks. So I think that this time I needed to manage my time better, in the sense that I was so determined to like sit down and just like write a certain amount of words every single day. And I think there's people that do that really well. And those people are like amazing. And I want to put them on a little pedestal and just be like, I worship you. You're amazing. But everybody's different. And I think that's what I learned, that I put a lot of pressure on myself to write a certain amount every single day. And I just can't function like that. I have really bad ADHD, and it's really hard for me to sit and force myself to do something for a really long time, especially if I'm like, no, I'm forcing it. And then creatively, it's just not as fun. And I feel like that shows when you're not like enjoying it as much. So I learned to like, if there were days that I would write so much that it would be like a week's worth of writing that I had originally planned to write in one day. And instead of just like allowing myself to have that win and be like, okay, well, I'm good. Then I hit my quota for the week. I'm good. I would be like, okay, well, I have to write a certain amount tomorrow. Then I'll be ahead. And I'd set these expectations for myself that was not realistic. So I think I learned to set more realistic expectations for myself. And I think the biggest difficulty was just like really, really learning what my limitations were with that, because a lot of this stuff is new, and the time management and being on deadlines and things like that. It was like so exciting that I'm like on a deadline. Like it sounds so glamorous. But it's, yeah, there's certain points where I'm like, I'm not sure, like, how do I like the time management and stuff? That's been something I've struggled with since I was like in elementary school, like time management. And it's still something I'm learning to do. But I've gotten it down much better than I did before. So that's the boon. Yeah, that was probably the most difficult part, was like setting realistic expectations for myself and making sure that I'm not too hard on myself with certain things.
Yeah, and not comparing yourself to like how others work, because the comparison isn't like comparison is the killer of joy.
Oh, the worst. It's the thief of joy. Yes. And I tell other people that all the time. I have like this terrible thing where I'll give people like advice that I absolutely think they should follow, and I don't do it.
I feel like we're all like, that is a universal experience.
It's so bad.
Like,
it's
do
like,
what I say, not what I do.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, please take care of yourselves, drink water. Meanwhile, I haven't drank water since like yesterday. I don't even remember. Yes, I know. I'm like much better with it now, but there was a period of time where, I think comparison is like absolutely the thief of joy. And I also know this, like it's like almost weird the way your brain will forget a principle that you know is true and that you've learned, and then you'll get insecure or like self-conscious, and then suddenly your brain's like, I've forgotten everything ever. And this is just the only feeling we're feeling right now is and you're like, oh my God, I hate that. Why? Stop. I don't want that. I think comparison is also so fruitless because everybody's so different and everybody's brain works so differently. And even if you think you function and think like almost exactly the same as someone else, you're still not going to do everything exactly the same or think exactly the same, because we all have like very unique brains. That's a very positive thing too, that everybody has their unique brain, like a snowflake.
This is also positive and healthy. Wow.
I know. I'm obsessed with it. And it's so refreshing too. Because I feel like the romantasy that you've brought and you've shared and you've created and you just continue to create, it's something that's needed. And it brings a lot, like,
I'm gonna cry.
It's fun. It's fun.
It's joyful.
Yeah. Like we could not stop. And, like, Laura, you've read this a few times now on your sick bed. Like,
I have. I've read this a few times. And I do want to say, speaking of joy, and we all just like need a little bit of joy and a little bit of happiness. And this book is exactly that. But and it's not a spoiler to say that the banter in this book is exquisite. Can you kind of walk me through how did you come up? Like, I know these characters are autonomous and that they are directing you essentially, but you are writing these words. How did this banter like continue to stay? Because it's not only like tight, because it's tight, but it's also fun and it's sharp and it's interesting and the tension is tension, but also the realizations and the joy is there as well. And it's a compliment to you. But how did you do this?
I'm getting red. I don't know what to do. That's so nice. Thank you for saying that. It's so kind. I feel like banter is something that I have so much fun with. I think people can tell it's my favorite part of the process is when the characters are talking to each other. And that's been true since I started reading. Like, I love beautiful descriptions and I love the prose and books and stuff, but my favorite is when the characters are just talking to each other. and interacting, because sometimes it's really funny or sometimes it's serious, and it's just very like interesting character wise to like watch them converse. Banter is something that I will have like different methods of doing each scene. A lot of the times I will talk it out loud, and I'll just like act like I'm having a conversation with myself and see like how I would respond in each way. And then I end like if I had
You've got chemistry with yourself. My goodness.
If I had a camera in my car, it would be horrifically embarrassing, because the amount of times I'm driving and I'm just talking a scene to myself where I'll be the villain and Evie, and I'll be like saying the scene out loud, and I'm like, this and this, and then Evie says this, and then the villain says this, and I'll do it in my head a few times. And I do videos like that too, where I'll be like, oh, that would be so funny if I said that in a video. And sometimes that's just a jumping off point for a video, or sometimes it's the jumping off point for a conversation in the book. Or I will literally think of something funny that makes me laugh so hard that I'm like, I'm going to find a way to put that in there. I don't know how or when or where or how, but it's going in. So yeah, I'm lucky in the sense too that sometimes I'll be just sitting and writing a scene, and it'll just pop into my head what the person should say. And I'm lucky in the sense that I come from a really big family that has this exact sense of humor, with like very tongue-in-cheek, witty comeback, like sort of very quick-witted. I'm like, I love my family so much. Like, we're so disgustingly close. And there was so many times we did like football Sundays. We still do this every Sunday. We all go to my aunt's house for football Sunday. And a lot of the times my role, because I grew up in a family of like mostly boys, they love to watch football, and I never adopted the Tom girl streak as a kid. I just like did not care about sports at all. I was like, I care that you care, but I don't care. But I pretend to care, and I like the outfits, so anything for a cute outfit, really.
Yeah.
But I would bring a book and I would sit and read, and every time somebody would cheer, I'd go, woohoo, yay, and then back down to my book. But I would listen. I would like listen to their conversations, and I kind of at some points just felt like an observer, where I would just be like, I'm just like watching it happen, and I feel like it just like kind of like deeply ingrained the way that like that way of speaking. And sort of that's how my characters talk to each other. So sometimes it just like comes to me because it's like what I grew up around, and it's very instinctual. Yeah, so I'm lucky in that sense. I really owe a lot of my humor and stuff to my family and my very funny brothers and cousins.
And it shows in like your social posts, because you get giddy about sharing things. You're like, you know, when the Sunshine Assistant says this and he's reacting like that, and you're just like, it goes back to what you were saying about the teasers. Yeah. You're like, I know something y'all don't know, but I can't tell you how gassed up I am about this right now.
Yes. I'm a fangirl. In my heart of hearts, I am a fangirl. And if I can't fangirl over something, even if it's something I wrote, like I cannot fully enjoy it. Like I need to be able to gush and be like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. And I get excited over like so many things, but I really, I think I've talked about this before. I don't know if I talked about this with you guys. I definitely have talked about this with people before, on podcasts and things like that, where I struggle with like mental health issues, like anxiety and depression and things like that. So when I'm excited about something, I'm like, I'm bringing this for everything it's worth, because I know how it feels to be very, very deeply sad. And I also am lucky enough that I know what it feels like to be very, very intensely and very strong, happy joy. So when I do feel that, like, it's so aggressive. Like, I'm like so excited.
And it's something to be celebrated too, because it's like, I think we always remember, you know, I'm deep in my Inside Out 2 era these last 7 months. And it's just like, you can't have sadness without joy. You can't have joy without sadness. You can't have this without that. Like, there's going to be peaks and valleys, and it isn't just one thing. So you get to have an appreciation for like the blending of it all.
Yeah. And that, like, even in a sad, or I used to teach this in schools. I used to be a social emotional learning teacher. So I would push into classrooms and teach kids empathy. And we talk about processing our big emotions. And there was a huge emphasis that, like, it's not bad to be sad. It's not bad to be angry. It's very normal to be anxious and worried and nervous. it just feels uncomfortable. So like we associate it really negatively because it feels so bad in our bodies, where like our hearts will beat really fast, our palms will sweat. Like, we have a physical reaction to like those really big feelings. But I was like, it's the same thing when you're excited, your heart will start beating really fast. Your body has like a physical reaction to being like feeling really strong. And I loved that because I felt like I was learning something too, that like I didn't have that program in school. I didn't know that like those really strong feelings were like normal and okay to process, and that there were ways to like deal with them, and, you know, positive self-talk and counting and breathing and like all of those things. And sometimes you just wait. And the biggest thing that I learned, and that I love Inside Out for, is like also feelings don't last forever. If you feel really badly or you don't feel good, it's very improbable that that's going to be a forever feeling. Like it will go away. And that's the same thing with being happy. Like we don't feel any feelings for like ever. If that would be cool, if we could feel happy forever, that would be fabulous. If that person exists, kudos for you. That's amazing. But most people like will feel sad. And yeah, it's like the ebb and flow. It's important to like, you know, process each one. And then you can like get through it. Because the only way to like get through it is to just like feel it and let yourself like have that sad moment. Let yourself have I love a good cry. I love a good cry. I can't help it. I'm just a girl. I've said that 20 times.
That's gonna be like a drinking. Take a shot every time
I say.
We all say, "I'm just a girl.
I'm just a girl." But no, it's so funny because I watched Inside Out with my dad. My parents were over for the weekend, and we watched Inside Out because my dad had never seen it, and I cannot watch that movie without hysterically crying. Because as soon as we get to the Bing Bong scene, I am just heavy sob. My dad actually turned to me and was like, "Oh my God, like, are you okay?" And I was like,
No.
I was like, absolutely not. I was like, it's just sad because we forget our imaginary friends as we get older. He was like, oh God, okay.
I was like, Dad's looking around.
He's like, help, get her a tissue. Like, what's happening? But it's so cathartic because, like, after it's over, I'm like, oh, that felt like a good cry. Like, I needed.
You don't realize you need it till after.
You're like, you know what? My body needed that. It needed just like it waters the soul. The tears water the soul. And then you grow like a flower.
This is so healthy.
I know. And speaking of big feelings, I was going to say, like, what have the big feelings been associating with, like, this past year? You've done cons, like you've gone to different meet and greets. I'm still waiting on you to come to New York. Yes. Selfishly waiting. Yes. So like, what has that experience been like, coming from not just like big feelings, but being a fangirl and people fangirling over you?
Being on the other side.
Yeah, it's very, very humbling, and I get very beside myself because I'm like, I just don't, and it's not because I don't think, like, I'm not proud of everything I've done, and that, like, the book that I've made and the second book that I made, like, I'm so proud of all of it. It's just, it's such a surreal feeling going from like doing it just like by yourself on your computer, and then it's out in the world, and then you're seeing it out in the world, and then you're getting tagged in posts of people seeing it out in the world, and people are waiting in line to come meet you and have you sign their book. And I'm like, oh my God. I had somebody come up to me at an event, and they were like, I drove 6 hours. And I was like, can I give you gas money? Like, what? Oh my God. But I really can't wrap my brain around that. And I'm not like, oh my God, like, I'm so like, it's really, I truly cannot get my brain around that. So I don't know when it will stop feeling like that, or if it will ever stop feeling like that. I kind of hope it doesn't, because it's just every day I wake up and I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, how is this happening? Because this is something I've like wanted to do since I was like really young. I've always, and it's surreal for my family too, because they've watched me read so many books. At every family gathering, I had a book, and they were like, talk to the family. And I'm like, I am. What? This part is good. I was reading like Percy Jackson, like, shh.
Yeah,
Percy and Annabeth are interacting. You're ruining the vibe.
I'm here. Is this not enough for you?
Yeah, I'm present. And I loved it. That's why I like can only read when it's like really, really loud, or I read with the TV on. I need people talking in the back. My boyfriend's like, I need dead silence. And I'm like, I cannot read in dead silence. Because every little sound I hear, I need like, I'll put on Gilmore Girls in the background just to hear people talking. because I need it. I'm like, it's my favorite place to read is like with people around, because I'm like, I need words being said or I feel like I can't focus, which is odd.
Because then you're hearing every single
little sound,
individual. You're
yes.
like,
by everything.
Like every creak, every noise. I'm like, oh my God,
What is that?
I can't do this. Yeah, and so my family, and they've heard me say since I was younger, like I want to be an author. And at family gatherings too, I'd have my laptop and I'd be writing like little stories and I'd be showing my grandparents and I'd be like, I'm going to publish that. And they'd be like, okay. I was like 11. They were like, sure, absolutely. You'll totally do that. But yeah, my parents like truly like were always like, yeah, I think you'll publish a book one day. And in my head, I was like, it probably won't happen. It's just such a long shot that this will happen. But I always had it in the back of my head, like, I want it to happen. Like, I really want to be able to like write books and stories that people will like, or that will make them laugh or make them smile. And I get to do that now. And I truly don't think it will ever stop being like, every day I'm like, I kind of like really pinch myself real hard, or I'm not, that sounds so cheesy, but I'm like, it is really so, it just exactly that way. It's very magical. And yeah, I don't know what to do with it. I'm still, yeah, it's very surreal. I quite literally, my brain is like not equipped to process it.
But to not be blasé about it too, to like, there is an appreciation because you know, we're all fortunate enough that the resources are there. Like there probably was a point when we were 11 where you're just like, we want that to happen for you. Don't know even where you would start.
Yeah.
And here you are in book 2.
It's insane. And it's extra funny too, because like self-publishing is such an accessible thing now. Like it's such a great avenue to go. Like there's 2 great avenues to take if you want to be an author. You can either do trad or self-published. My grandfather, my Jiddu Richard, he self-published a book in the 90s, like way before social media was a thing, like way back in the day. It was like I think it was like a murder mystery novel. And yeah, he really loved to write, and he unfortunately passed when I was just a baby, but it was something that we constantly talked about, that he self-published a book. And I was like, oh my God, I wish like he was still around. We could self-publish it for him and promote it. Because it's like accessible now, where he like self-published books are in Barnes and Noble. Like you can get them in bookstores now. And like, that wasn't always the case. Like I think
very
like,
mainstream.
Yeah.
Right? That's how so many authors are like also starting is self-published. It's so interesting that like there is no right or wrong way anymore, where there was a spin on it before that.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. I wish he was around to see. I feel like he knows it's happening. It's very special. Yeah.
We have talked about book 1 and we have talked about book 2, and you yourself have almost given away the title to book 3 in your social media several times, apparently, allegedly, maybe.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Is there anything general, broad strokes, that you can tell us about book 3?
I think like this is what I can say, because I've been outlining book 3 the past few weeks. And by outlining, like my first week of outlining is just listening to music that I think relates to what's going to happen and staring at the wall and daydreaming. And that's like, I'm like, this is my process.
That's your process. Whatever works.
I think the only thing I can really say without spoiling anything is that book 3 just like ramps up everything. Like we're like this in book 2, and then book 3 is like, So yeah. A lot more is happening in book 2, of a lot more dynamically. Lots of secrets will come out in book 3. That's all I'm going to say.
Perfect.
I want to say more, but I'm going to zip it and stop talking.
No, we don't want anybody to get mad at you, Tom Holland.
Yeah, oh my God, I am Tom Holland. I love Tom Holland. I'm like, I would be happy to be Tom Holland, but not in the sense that everything.
Not to get in trouble like Tom Holland.
Yeah, we don't want to get in trouble.
Oh, but he is so cute when he accidentally reveals something. He's like, oh no.
He's like,
I know. I'm like, I
like he's gotten better. I feel like when Zendaya is right by him, he looks at her and she's like, don't you don't you do that right now. And he's like,
no.
You're right. I'm just not gonna talk, actually.
They're so cute. I'm obsessed with both of them. I love them. They're so cute.
Hannah, we want to say thank you for taking the time to hang out with us and talk about your second book. We love it. We've already read it. We love it.
Oh,
we hope that everybody else that reads it will love it because it's fantastic and it is a beacon of joy in a time when we need it. So, Hannah, where can we find you? And do you have anything coming up?
Yeah. Events and socials, all of that. I mean, we'll have it all, and we've shared it before, but
yes. So coming up, so you can find me at Hannah Nicole Maehrer. It has been my user forever. It's on TikTok, Instagram are like my main socials. I am on YouTube. I don't post a whole lot, but I'm working on posting every single Assistant to the Villain episode, like compilations, like slowly but surely they're making their way up there. It's just like time consuming to get them like all together and then get them up, but they will all get up there eventually.
And it's like 5 years worth of stuff. Like you have to get up.
It's like,
yes. And then I do have a Facebook page. I'm not active on it. I don't use it, but I put it in my beacons like, because there were like 6 fake book pages. And I was like, I gotta they're doing it so much better than me. Like I gotta get in the running with this.
Oh, it's like it's not even you, and they're like, they're promoting me more than me on Facebook.
I know, they're like posting stuff. I've told this story so many times. I got so fed up the one day because most of them are scam accounts, and they'll like abandon ship when they realize it's not working, and they'll move on to like someone else, and it's a terrible cycle. But this one person was just like consistently like every picture I posted, they would take it. Every video, they would take it. And then I got to the point where I was like, this is so rude. So I messaged them and I said, hi, this is illegal. Please stop. And they took it down.
You were so polite. You're like, I'm going to get the authority. You were like, can you please stop? This isn't nice. And they were like, you're right, it isn't nice.
I said, this is so rude. Please cease and desist. And they did. I was like, whoa. I didn't think I was like, they're for sure going to block me or just ignore the message. But I saw that they saw it and then they took it out. Anyways, sorry, that was long-winded. And then events coming up, I was just going to say, because you said New York, I think it's officially up now, but we're doing a launch event near Philadelphia. And it's going to be at Reeds and Company in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. And then I believe it's on the 7th. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's on the 7th. I'm going to be at the Barnes & Noble in Union Square.
I'm so excited. Congratulations. Congratulations for all the things you do.
Oh, thanks. I'm so stoked for all of it. It's going to be so much fun. And yeah, there's definitely going to be other events that crop up coming in the fall and in August as well. Oh, and at the end of August, I'll be in Austin, Texas for the Fae Ball, which will be so fun because a lot of my friends are also going. And so ball gowns and dancing is always a good time.
That always sounds like a good, who wants to say no to that? Any of it.
Oh yeah.
And the people, great.
Oh yeah. And the girls that run the Fae Ball are just like the absolute best. Like they're just so fun and yeah, they're lovely. So yeah, it's going to be a good time.
Congratulations.
I babbled too much. I'm sorry.
No, it's never enough. We just want to be respectful of your time. We know you have back-to-back things. You're a busy woman now.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. It was so nice talking with you again.
You too. Thanks for taking the time. And please feel free to follow Hannah on all of her socials. We'll have those in the show notes as always. And feel free to follow us. We're at ACOFAE Podcast on Instagram and ACOFAE Laura and ACOFAE Jessica on TikTok. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.